Hello, and welcome to the second Cartoon Stock Facebook Live with Bob Mankoff. Bob Mankoff is the former New Yorker cartoon editor and president of Cartoon Stock and Cartoon Collections. And today he's going to be talking about the New Yorker Caption Contest, and will be joined by Lawrence Wood, 7-time New Yorker Cartoon Caption Contest winner. So take it away, Bob.
Really happy you're all joining us, even if there's only 3 of you, but I hope there's more. So I got in the background, I have my whole setup here. We have the old New Yorker Caption Contest game, very, very rare, which I'd be willing to sell you for $250,000. And so let me start the presentation, because this is going to be fun, lots of fun, I hope. And so this is so. Right away, I'm taking it down a notch here. We're not going to win. Please, don't be silly. No one actually wins the caption contest, not even Larry Wood. He's just an actor who plays the person who wins the caption contest. So I've showed you how to have a slightly better chance of winning the New Yorker contest. Actually, you'll definitely have a better chance, although I cannot guarantee winning. Our lawyers told me about that. Now, about Larry Wood, or as I call him, Lawrence, when I want to give him the proper authority. Who is he besides the 7-time winner, the Ken Jennings, effectively, of the caption contest? Well, I got an email. I said, well, Larry, how do you want me to introduce you? And he said, it doesn't matter how you introduce me. So he actually is the former king of France, which is amazing, in that he gave up his throne to become a legal aid attorney, teaches property law at the University of Chicago, which Anthony Scalia, he told me, dismissed as a waste of time. Don't tell that to the students. And also he's, I'm reading this here, he's Legal Aid Chicago, which was the Midwest's largest provider of free civil legal services to people living in poverty or otherwise vulnerable, which I think is a wonderful thing that he is doing, although I've always been more interested in free illegal services. But we're going to get to Larry later, who I'm going to talk to him about his techniques for entering the caption contest. And the fact is, he has won 7 times and been a finalist, I think 3 or 4. But let's get to the contest itself, or actually, let's not get to the contest itself, because this broadcast, or whatever it's called, or Bobcast, is brought to you by Cartoon Stock, cartoonstock.com, which is the world's largest provider, not of legal aid services to poor people, but to services if you want to use cartoons as a gift. If you want to search for cartoons on anything, you can just have a really good time on the site looking at great cartoons from the New Yorker and other publications. And so please go visit Cartoon Stock to have fun and also to buy something. And if you can't buy something, find somebody else to buy something on Cartoon Stock, because half of all the money goes to poor people, not the poor people that Lawrence is dealing with, but the poor people who are cartoonists. They don't make that much money. So half of the money goes to cartoonists, and that's part of the raison d'etre. And Lawrence would know what that means, being the former king of France. And also we have our own caption contest there, which at one point there was a prize of $100. Maybe we will reintroduce that. Lawrence judges that caption contest. I have nothing to do with that contest, really. So if you're pissed off because you didn't win that contest, you can yell at Lawrence later, however you do that, virtually. And for all the times that you lost from 2005 to 2017, you can vent, you can be angry with me. Okay, the history of the caption contest. I created it. Yes, this is due to me. There would not be a New Yorker caption contest starting in 1999 if I didn't have the idea. Now, where did I get the idea? It didn't arise out of nothing at all. I mean, there had been contests before, caption contests. Oh, when I was, I used to get a subscription to Punch magazine, and the and Punch had a caption contest in which they would take an old cartoon from the 1890s and you would put a new caption on it. Anyway, when the first cartoon issue came out in 98, it didn't do it then. In 1999, we had an issue that was pretty much totally devoted to cartooning. And part of when I became cartoon editor, I really wanted that. And Tina Brown instituted it. David Remnick let it go for a number of years till he didn't want to let it go anymore. Anyway, 1999, this is the second ever cartoon issue. And on the back page, we had a caption contest. This is the first ever New Yorker Caption Contest. It only happened at each cartoon issue once a year. And it was Jack Ziegler's drawing. And the winning caption was, "Mom, Dad's been on eBay again." And the way you enter it is, I think, actually by mail. I don't even know it was email that time. Maybe it was, but it was a nightmare to judge. But for the next number of years, we had a caption contest in 2000, 2001, 2002. 2003, we had a sort of different kind of contest on the back page in which you created your own cartoon and put in the caption. And in 2004 was really the last year that we had that yearly caption contest. And I'm trying to remember what the caption was for this. I think the winning caption was something like, "He thinks he can accomplish more by working within the system." So 2005. Oh, by the way, interestingly, the one cover that Gary Larson ever had for the, I just had the thought that maybe I'm doing this and it's not working. And no one is actually receiving it because I don't see myself and I'm forgetting whether I'm supposed to be seeing myself. So I'm feeling a little anxious. But anyway, that was the one cover that Gary Larson ever did for the New Yorker magazine. Rather funny cover, really. You know, where instead of the two gunfighters drawing, the cartoonists were drawing. So in 2005, while I get credit for creating the caption contest, David Remnick gets credit for coming up with the idea for having it weekly. And he didn't know exactly how we would do it because it seemed weird. Well, how are you going to have a weekly contest? But he was very insistent, and I think this was really very smart, certainly smarter than my idea for it, which was you would always have some sort of comment on it, to just let it be something like a crossword puzzle. It just appears on the back page. There's no real writing about it. It's judged, and then you have first, second, and third place. So I was given that task of figuring out how to do that. And I did figure out how to do it. And it was sort of complicated because you couldn't have a contest and then have the winner the next week. You had to stagger the pages and between entering the contest, between voting on the contest in one sense, and then voting again, and then presenting it. Because the magazine closes on Friday, and the contest itself goes all the way until Sunday at midnight for every stage. Anyway, this was the very first winner of the caption contest, so glory goes to that person whose name I forgot, so I guess there wasn't all that much glory. And this is how it works now. Basically, there's a month that goes on before the winner is revealed and before it goes through all the stages. So if we look back on March 29th, this is when a PC Vey cartoon appears, in which it's the guy performing for all his neighbors, very much a pandemic joke, where you have the finalists were from 2 weeks before, and you have the winning caption from actually 4 weeks before. Okay, then 2 weeks after that appears, there's voting on the 3 finalists for the Peter Vey contest. And then 2 weeks after that, there was the winner. And the winner for that was C. And you said you couldn't work from home. And then then there's a new contest that appears that you enter. Now, I got a lot of questions about how the cartoonists come up with captions, what they are, all of that. So I thought I would just go directly to the cartoonist, a friend of mine, Benjamin Schwartz, and asked how he came up with his caption for the Ahab Moby Dick cartoon. Let's hear from Ben. Oh, that's the one. Okay.
Hello, my name is Benjamin Schwartz. I'm a cartoonist, and I'm here to tell you a little bit about the origin of this caption contest cartoon, which did not start as a caption contest cartoon. It started as a regular cartoon with a caption. My original caption for this was, "Oh, I didn't recognize you outside of work." And that line, that caption, is actually where the whole idea for this drawing began. I was thinking about that sort of silly idea of someone that you might be very familiar with seeming unfamiliar just because they're in a new spot. I don't know that I was thinking about this consciously. It was probably in my mind because, you know, we're having that experience now with people wearing masks, and it's taking you a second to, you know, realize, oh, that's your old friend, that's your cousin. The thing that was really in my mind as I was trying to come up with the right drawing for this cartoon was thinking back to being a kid and being at the grocery store with my father, who's a doctor, and we would always have this experience where a patient would come up to him in the grocery store, say, "Oh, good to see you." And I could always tell looking at his face that it was taking him like an extra half a second just to figure out who this was. Oh, this is a patient. And I'm sure that there's even more of that on the patient side when you see your doctor outside of their white coat and just doing whatever he or she is doing about their business. So I started thinking through that and trying to come up with cartoons, really sticking with that doctor-patient dynamic and having some ideas, but nothing was really clicking. And then it occurred to me that, you know, I could go outside of that, and really the more instantly recognizable that the person that wasn't being recognized was, the funnier it would be. So I started taking it to sillier and more absurd places until finally I hit on this idea of the Ahab Moby Dick relationship, and, you know, realized that that would both you know, complement the gag I was going for and also make for a more interesting drawing. We have this whale in a ridiculous setting. So I submitted it like that, all that work, and they thought, that caption's not so great, but the cartoon, the drawing works. And so now it's a caption contest, and I look forward to reading what the readers send in. That's it. Bye.
Well, thank you, Ben. Ben, very, very mild-mannered. Most people wouldn't know that part of his career was as a Navy SEAL. But I think it's actually a wonderful caption, and it shows you the difference between the creation of a cartoon and how it often comes from a kind of real-life experience and the coming up with a caption. So it may well be that you come up with a better caption than the cartoonist, although I actually think his caption is very meaningful and wonderful. But I think the cartoonist is doing the heavy lifting in creating this image and relating it in some way to life or the world or their experience. And it also shows you that the creation of a contest image is not just this random thing that you can pick any kinds of objects, but you sort of have to know that it's going to work. And that's why pretty much we always, to answer the question people have asked quite a bit, we always picked a cartoon that had a caption because it showed that the comic problem, if you will, the puzzle, had an actual solution. Looking at the most recent contest is by another friend of mine, colleague, Drew Dernovich, is the two firemen looking at the different poles. They can go down, and I just like, I didn't have Drew recorded, but I asked him, well, you know, what was your impetus for this? And here it's interesting because his comments. One of the ways I spitball ideas is to play around visually with something that's familiar and try to create something new out of it. So that is really, in a way, that a humorist works and a cartoonist looking at the familiar and defamiliarizing it, thinking how you would change it to make it somehow the same but different enough, and get that sweet spot where it's different enough but the same, and it generates ideas. So once you see what he did, I was at different fireman pole scenarios: small holes, large holes, barber poles, holes that went into fish tanks. All of those you could see would be very, very fertile. Finally, he came up with the square hole and the round hole, fitting a round hole in a square peg. All of that he thought would bring out a lot of associations, and I think it did. And when I talked to Larry at the end, we're going to sort of do our own kind of spitballing of thoughts about what we had in terms of the caption contest what would be a good solution for this. And I think, and you're perfectly willing to steal those ideas, although we will have already put them in beforehand. This is Drew's caption. That was always the hard part for me. And I think he was referring to the tests in which you had to decide which shaped objects went into which correctly shaped holes. Anyway, New Yorker contest. This is just an estimation because I stopped doing it, but I think it's pretty accurate. I'd say right now there have been over 4 million entries. There have been 752 winners. And I think it averages between 5,000 and 6,000 captions every time. So what's your chance of winning? That's it right there. No chance at all, right? No, not really, because somebody wins every week. One of the things that people ask me is, like, are there a lot of different captions or a lot of the same captions? There are lots of the same captions. This is some computer analysis that I did with some researchers at Microsoft to see the clusters of captions. So you can see here's the car. It's the perfect situation. You have a normal looking car that's abnormal in a lot of ways because it's also an animal. And here you have the different clusters really of captions come in. Captions that had to do with being a hybrid, that it runs on, roadkill, that it gets how much mileage per goat. And so just looking at this and looking at these captions, you can see really how a comic sensibility brings different frames of reference together. Now, what are your chances of winning by chance? I had someone at the New Yorker do this and try to figure it out. Well, it's basically 1 in 5,000 if it was just a lottery. And if it was just a lottery and you kept submitting, eventually, I did this a number of years ago, by 2026, you'd have a 20% chance. But it does really help to have some talent to this. And maybe it also helps to where you actually submit. So this is something that was created, the United States of the New Yorker Caption Contest, showing who's submitting and from where. And not unexpectedly, the number of submissions have a lot to do with the winners. So you can see most of the, what I would say is the majority of submissions come from New York and California, but a lot of other states also. And right there in the middle of the country, I don't know, I don't think they've heard of the caption contest. And these are total number of wins. So you can see that New York and California dominate. And my geography is a little weak, so I don't even know what the other states are. But one of the things is, if you look at how much winning as a percentage of submissions, well, it turns out then Alaska is the funniest state in the union because it's got 3 winners, but there are only 14 people in the state. In terms of men and women entering, men, those loudmouths, obnoxious men who keep thinking they're so funny, enter much more than women. And so a much greater percentage of the winners have been men, because 84% of all contest entries are by men, only 16% by women. But when you do the Alaskan type analysis, it turns out women are actually funnier because they win at a greater percentage. And I don't really know. I mean, it's interesting. I think to some extent, maybe since the early contests were maybe done by men and men were more the protagonists in the contest. So that might be something interesting to look at in terms of the percentage entering. And I would suspect that that does have an influence. But one of the nice things here is it shows that, honestly, certainly in terms of this contest, there really isn't an advantage to being a man or a woman. And I must say also, certainly when I was involved in judging the contest, it was all anonymous. We didn't know who entered, and we didn't know whether you were a man or woman. And I would doubt very much whether you could look at these captions and make a discrimination based on that. Well, the caption contest has really become part of our culture. You know, it's not just this one little thing happens at the New Yorker. Here's this on the show Bored to Death. Here's Ted Danson talking about it.
What would a police duck say to a suicidal bear? You can bear it? Oh, God, that's terrible. I'm never going to win this thing.
What are you doing?
Yeah, he's never going to win that thing. Not with that. But also that was not actually a caption contest. That was drawn by Glenn LeLevre for this show. A weird contest, really. It would be very hard to actually have a caption for that contest because it has a police duck talking to a suicidal bear. Too many frames of reference there. If it was a policeman just talking to a bear, you know, it might be something like, you know, you'll feel better in the spring. Well, celebrities actually have entered it. Some celebrities actually entered it. Some celebrities just said they did it. Over here it says, Mike Bloomberg, self-made billionaire and three-time mayor, has been heard to complain that no matter how high, he can't even come up with a contender. Oh, maybe so he never entered. He can't come up with anything. I see. And then there's Zach Galifianakis, had no trouble. Anyway, they're talking about these people who've entered. And the fact is, they didn't enter too much. Here was usually, if there was a celebrity, they weren't like Lawrence Wood, who was entered hundreds of times, or even, as I'll talk about, Roger Ebert, who entered hundreds of times. So here's Zach Galifianakis, the comedian's entry. Big deal, I can drive a stick, and which is not bad, but here's the winning entry. He's his own best friend, which I think is a very good caption. Okay. A lot of publicity to Roger Ebert because he won the New Yorker Caption Contest after 107 tries, which seemed like, oh, that's more than anybody can try. But actually, people, right now, there's 754. And I would say there are people who have entered probably close to 700 times at least. Anyway, he won with, I'm not going to say the word I'm thinking of. And we all know what that word is, but we're not going to say it on Facebook, because we might get in fucking trouble. He actually is very funny, entered a lot of caption contests. This is one he entered that he didn't win. That is very funny, a Leo Cullum cartoon. Now watch how I lift my tray table to its original and upright position. Clearly an erection joke. And here's the thing about judging a contest when I was there. Somehow the New Yorker was very prudish. So there couldn't be really, I don't think, anything of a sexual content. I would say that will probably disqualify you from winning the contest, but not from being funny, So it was interesting because this contest was the first time computer people got involved in it and said, well, maybe we can crack the contest and can just put all these captions through the computer mill, through our algorithms, and then determine what is the quintessence of the caption contest. And if you follow these rules, you're sure to win. And so Peter McGraw, who a friend of mine I know, and Phil Fernbach did that for the Ebert contest. And here are the rules they came up with. Novelty, captions that use words that are uncommon in other captions are more likely to make the short list of things that become finalists. yes and no. You know what I mean? You would think it sort of makes sense intuitively, right? But it turns out that a lot of winning captions, in fact, have words that are very similar to other captions. Punctuation. Captions that avoid exclamation points, commas, and question marks are more likely to make the short list. I would say definitely exclamation marks and question marks. Certainly exclamation marks, because that's kind of shouting. I don't see why you would really ever need that. A joke doesn't get funnier if you say it louder, unless I guess you're talking to a person like myself, hard of hearing, and then it might be marginally funnier. 3, length. Captions that use fewer words are more likely to see. Well, it all depends on how fewer. I think most of the captions that win tend to be 7 or 8 words or 9 words, because that seems like the right amount, but not for all, of course. So I think what I'm saying here are rules, but there are no hard and fast rules. These are rules of thumb. Abstractness and imaginability. Captions that are hard to visualize are more likely to make the short list. Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. That's a particular caption that I like, where it's a completely ordinary sentence that only becomes funny and transformed when it works with the caption contest. But the fact is, there are funny captions that don't follow that rule. I find it interesting. One of the things that's a lot easier to do than look at the formal structure of a caption that makes it funny is to look at the formal structure of a caption that doesn't make it funny. So here's like a really bad caption for this contest. If you'd have stayed seated in the tram vehicle, we'd have arrived here before the wind kicked up the sand. But no, you had to act like a kid and get us thrown off. Now what genius? Everything about that is wrong. But it's almost funny in its own strange way. And there are stuff online called the anti-caption contest, which really plays off of the worst possible caption. The caption contest has become interesting for psychologists and writers and even business people. And I'm just putting this out there now so you can see how a cartoon caption contest can make you a better writer. This guy, Peter Boomgarden, who's a business consultant and teaches at university in St. Louis, gives this to his business class week after week. So it teaches them to just be concise, be condensed, and have an objective that you have to achieve through writing concisely and interestingly, and I guess funnily as well. And someone else along this line who's done this is the poet Cody Walker, who has talked about the similarity between certain kinds of poetry, which are very concise, very effective in their use of language and captions. So there are links up all over the internet, and you can read about this. But I do think that if you're a cartoonist and you really work at your craft, you do become a better writer, at least of captions, or you better be if you want to make any money at it. Okay, so that's the sort of what I'm describing you, the process of creation. But the process of judgment, which you're all really interested in because you're knowing, why did I lose? And so I'm going to give you a little history of that. And so originally it starts out with my assistants, who I don't want to look through all those captions. And my original assistant who does this was assistant Mark Philippe Eskenazi, who we called Mark Philippe Eskenazi for short. It's a joke I have always liked, and that's why I always tell it. Here is a video of him talking about that, I hope.
Cruising for captions here.
Shortly before I started, it was when they started the caption contests. The assistant needed to be someone who could judge all those captions.
People go onto the internet and enter their idea for the best gag line for that cartoon, and then some poor soul sorts through all of those at the end of the week.
I mean, mainly my job was to just read 8,000 captions a week. That was fun, but it was also soul-crushing.
my eyes, which had leveled off at sort of like a certain blurriness, increased several, whatever they are, like blindness points after staring at those captions for so long.
Yeah, so not long after that, Mark Philippe Escanaz went insane. Then I got a new assistant, Colin Stokes, who's still there. And he would do sort of a similar thing where he would look through all the captions and then give me essentially different categories to judge from. So I'd be looking at this, and this was all for this particular by Ben Schwartz, who we just saw before, in which it's the zombies attacking the people, and there were various different captions. I think Ben's caption for this was "Try killing them with kindness." And what I did at that point, after Colin gave that, I would do a Survey Monkey that would go out to New Yorker editors, and they would, judge it unfunny, somewhat funny, or funny. And then what I get back is the sample responses, and I judge. And look at these two sample responses. This shows you something really interesting. No one can really agree completely, or sometimes even marginally, in this case, with what is funny. So you have two people who have looked at all those captions, and one person thought pretty much all of them were funny, and someone thought they were pretty much unfunny. And what do you know about these two people? They should not date. So then, after going through all of this, I decided to, well, let's see if we can find a better way to do this, or at least maybe a slightly more objective way. You can't say, well, is it the best caption? But it was through crowdsourcing, in which essentially is what you do now. You vote on all the captions, and then there are some sort of statistics that sort them, really based on the voting. But everything is always hyped here. So how New Yorker cartoons could teach computers to be funny. It's not teaching computers to be funny. It's helping us judge the contest. I can guarantee you computers will never create cartoons, except for one person whom they may create cartoons. And that's my cartoons. That's in fact how I've been creating all my cartoons all these years. Just, after all, I had to do all those dots. It was just too tedious. So back in the 1980s, I talked to Steve Jobs, created this machine for me. And since then, it's just been the machine, frankly. And I have the machine, and if you like it, just like the caption contest, it's just $250,000. Okay, the real story is you vote. And this goes back, I don't know, probably now 6 or 7 years. Probably at a contest, when we started voting, I think we're at 754. I think it's contest 500. So you vote unfunny, somewhat funny, funny. And then just like this. And then what we get is this output from that everybody votes. And this is early on when we did this. So it would be the number of participants with 6,000, number of answers, votes, 187,000. Now it's in the millions. And you can see in a contest like this, which is still at the early stage of doing this, you can see here, in the middle there are the ratings of funny, somewhat funny, and unfunny. And what jumps out at you is that for any particular caption that wins, even, or that is highly ranked, just as many people think it's unfunny as funny. So right before, wait a second, I want to do this over again. Just before Mark went insane, Mark is a wonderful musician. He created a song which was his way of saying how to win the caption contest. And I'm going to play it for you now. And I think you should all because you'll be able to see the lyrics. I think you should sing along with it, and then we're going to talk to Larry Woods about his winning captions, and just going to have a fun discussion about it.
Find the cartoon on our website. Come up with some words for a caption you like. Try to make it feel like a hand in a glove. That's the kind of writing that we like and love. Cartoons that keep on writing. Just keep on striving. Win the caption contest. Try to keep it clean for our readers. Try to make the day put a smile on their face. If you make us laugh and you ain't on our staff, then you are really running for a final win. Captions that keep on arriving. Just keep on striving. Win it, win it,
All right is right. So now let's move over. These are Larry Woods, 6 out of his 7 winners. I didn't pick the one that was just terrible. It's not terrible, but so here are his winning captions. And I think right now we should go to Larry to kick off the discussion, which I guess means, goodness, that I stopped sharing. Is that it? Is that working?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Did anybody hear me? I mean, it's this thing. It's like you're, hi, Larry, how are you?
I'm well. How are you, Bob? I can hear you.
How's, yeah. They're still pissed off at you in France, right, for abdicating, right? But no, I'll tell you, the weird thing about it, Larry, is that when you're doing it, I don't sure that's working.
Yeah.
And so I'm just doing this out to myself. And I did have this panicky old person thing that I wanted to go back and check.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and check to say, well, is anyone really listening to me? Ooh, I like all the stuff coming in. Hey, so Larry, so let's talk about your, we'll do the Drew thing. But so when did you start entering? I think you said it was maybe with maybe the an early Jack Ziegler one with a guy crawling in a desert.
That's the first one that I remember. There's a guy crawling into a call center, and he looks like he's been crawling through the desert, and one of the people who's been on the telephone is standing up and shouting something at him. And that's the first one I remember entering.
Right. I'm trying to remember what an emergency thing. I think
the winning caption was something like, "This is neither the time nor the place."
Yeah, right. So, and have you submitted now for all? Did you miss any?
I think I missed 1 or 2. Sometimes I looked at them. There was a Lee Lorenz that I just could not figure out. And
which one was
I love his cartoons, but it showed an ambulance driver delivering on a dolly a mummy to a child standing on a doorstep, and the mother's behind the child, and she looks excited and she's saying something. And I just had no idea. I know the winning caption was, now you have a complete set.
I see.
Which is probably as good as you can get. I have no idea what Lee was thinking of.
Yeah. That's interesting. So you probably have entered, since we have 754, probably over 500 contests. So
over 700, I would think.
Over 700. And so how long do you spend on each one of these? How long? I mean, I think you have original ideas, and then I know, give us your process of like what you do. I know you think of them, then you show them to other people, and right?
Yeah, I'm pretty impulsive and I'm pretty impatient, and so I do it first thing Monday morning before I start work, and I look at the cartoon, and I spend about 10 or 15 minutes coming up with at least 3 captions. And then I'll send out, and it can be anywhere from 3 to 10. And then I send that out to about 7 friends who are really brutally honest and will tell me, what's good and what's not. And I often rely on what they suggest. And sometimes we disagree, and sometimes I'll go with their suggestions over my own instinct. And then I just submit it, and then I'm done with it. I don't think about it throughout the week.
I see. That's interesting because that's different as a cartoonist, especially when I was doing this. That's what I didn't want to do because I felt that I just had of course, when I cartooned, I was doing 10 or 15 cartoons every week. And you just wanted to, well, I guess, why do it? I had Lee Lorenz to look at it in that way, let him make that decision. I didn't want to and I would say that's true in general, that caption contest is sort of interesting because you have to boil it down to one caption, which makes it hard. Whereas a cartoonist, you don't really have to boil it down at all. If you can come up with 15 ideas a week, you've done a good job, and you might as well. And what I always would say, cartoonists, is don't edit. Let someone else look at it. But I think I think in the end, you as a creator aren't the best judge of what other people are going to think funny, because what you're doing is you're creating what you think is funny. Right. And that's a bunch of material, and you really have to let somebody else decide. So that's it. So let's talk about, so your very first win was, I don't know, make sure people can see this. How come? Okay.
There it is. Yeah. That was a Danny Shanahan cartoon. So it shows a panhandling dolphin, and then there's a couple in front of them, and the man's reaching into his back pocket to give him some money, and his wife is looking very angry, and she's saying something to him to discourage him from.
Right. So I think the thing about that is I think just from a humor point of view, we understand there's some conflict, and there's got to be conflict there. Yeah. There's got to be some energy there. I think, I think that's a good caption. I think my favorite one of your captions is, for a lot of reasons, is the bull who has gone through the window. And you remember what the acronym? I got to do this. Oh.
There it is. Yeah. So this is a Leo Cullum drawing, and I love his work. And this was the first cartoon for the contest, I think, that had color in it.
Right.
So I was really gunning for this one, and so I just had to kind of reconcile these two disparate references to kind of a quiet tea time between the cows and the fact that the bull had smashed his head through the window, obviously because he saw red.
Right. Now what's interesting, that just a little bit historically, is the New Yorker never had any color in its cartoons going back to the 30s or 40s, when you could have color because you had color on the covers. And Harold Ross was asked, who was the first great legendary editor of the New Yorker, why don't any of the cartoons have color? Because at that time, cartoons in Esquire did. Other cartoonists were trying to other cartoon magazines were trying to distinguish themselves. And in a very pithy statement, he said, "What's so funny about red?" Which is a great statement. But that made me, in the cartoon issue, I did a whole thing. I wanted to find out, well, could you have cartoons in which the color was the thing that made it work? Now, what I really like about this caption is, okay, you have a general idea. You should be happy. But then the way you finish it off is just wonderful. How many husbands even notice window treatments? So the contrast between this careful phrase, window treatments, and what the bull has done. It's this goes back to what Baumgarten said and Cody Walker about, you're picking an interesting word. I mean, let's think of the other ways in which you could have said that, which are not good. How many husbands even care about drapes?
Right.
okay, that wouldn't be very good.
Right.
Window treatments, because it makes the bull care about something that's in such contrast to the malevolence and the lack of nuance of the bull. Now, this is an interesting one. Is this one Drew Dernovich? We saw, the one that. God, this is.
Oh, you got to bring it over a little more.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the one I probably struggled with the most, because
it's not that unusual, right?
Because the parameters were so broad here. I mean, usually what you have with a cartoon for the contest is two disparate references that you have to reconcile. So there's not that much to work with, which makes coming up with a caption a little easier. You're thinking, okay, I've got to address this aspect of the cartoon and that aspect, bring them together. But with Drew Dernovich's, he just drew a common scene, which is people stuck in a traffic jam. So the possibilities were endless. And that made it much harder.
I think this caption contest is an accident. I think we didn't intend to put this a caption contest because it didn't make sense as a caption contest, and somehow it ended up. Now I can't remember the actual history, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. That somehow a fairly ordinary picture in that there could be many different captions that don't have much to do with it, and yet it's one of those contests. One of the winning contest captions, which then gets reprinted a lot because it has meaning about futility, about definition of insanity. Keep doing the same thing over and over again and think you're going to have something different. So this idea of honking, as something and used in various contexts of, do you really think just doing this when it has no possibility of having any effect? So I thought that's really interesting in terms of how that turned out. This one was meta, right?
Mick Stevens.
Yeah.
That's I don't do many meta captions, but it seemed that this one cried out for a meta caption because you see the artist's pen.
Yeah, that's great. I'll tell you what it reminded me of. It reminded me one of the first cartoons that I ever published in Saturday Review of Literature, and is on the cover of Elementary. The cartoonist did it.
Oh, yeah.
Which is what Holmes is actually saying in the caption, which is that. So yeah, so that's cool. And I'm looking at, so now let's noodle the. Oh yeah. So here's another thing about the caption contest. This very funny guy, Patrick House, who's a neuroscientist who won. Mm-hmm. He won with this caption.
Yeah.
With this caption, okay. And I think it's interesting because this is very much the kind of caption where it's abstract. We have no idea what it is, but. So it was, okay, I'm at the window to the right, you're right, am I right? And he was very funny about this because he said, you are not trying to submit the funniest cartoon. You are trying to win the New Yorker Caption Contest. What do you need to do? Launch a full-scale viral marketing campaign. Email everyone you know. Create a Facebook group. Call in long-standing debts. It helps if, like me, you have no shame. I had musicians pitching me at their shows, professors pitching me in their lecture halls, and old ladies at cafes pitching me to their grandnieces. Now, I know you indulge in a bit of this.
Yeah, but you can only do that once you become a finalist. So I disagree with Patrick House. I mean, you've got to try to submit the funniest one, and then if you become one of the 3 finalists, then you launch your viral campaign. Although I suppose now that with the crowdsourcing experiment, or it's not an experiment anymore, I suppose people could say, go to the crowdsourcing.
Go up and look at it, but also I don't know. Maybe there's a whole money-making thing that I could do. Where launch your campaign. You're busy defending poor people. You don't have time to really launch a campaign. You know what I mean? Using Salesforce, advertising,
Yeah.
commercial. Yeah, I think you really should. That's what the celebrities should have done. They should have really launched a campaign like on YouTube, where vote for my caption. But yeah.
During the crowdsourcing, yeah.
But I guess that is, well, here's where I would say I'm not absolutely sure Roger Ebert won fairly, not because he launched the campaign, but because they knew it was Roger Ebert.
Once he became a finalist.
Once he became a finalist. So yeah, to be a finalist, that's yeah.
Yeah, and again, I think that's entirely fair, because it's hard enough to become a finalist. If you've done that, I don't think anybody can criticize what you do beyond that point.
No, I think that's true. Looking at little questions. Alan Harbor. Well, if Bob says he's won 7 times, isn't that enough proof? It should be enough proof. I have the records. Yes, there is a database of everything. He's won 7 times.
Somebody's challenging that.
Someone challenge it. Really, this is what's happened with information. Nobody trusts anybody anymore.
Yeah.
And Lawrence has some very, very good advice about the vaccine.
I'm sorry, what?
About the vaccine. I know. Catherine Baden. My favorite caption of all time. Miss Hammond, I'd know you anywhere from Little Billy's portrait of you. Catherine, go up on Cartoon Stock and buy that cartoon. It's your favorite of all time.
It's a great cartoon.
Yes, please. It's by Ed Frasino. Okay. Let's see what else is going on. People who are just saying that we should vote for their captions. Mark Francis, a lot of very puzzling winners. What else are you puzzled about, Mark? I just want to know, because maybe it's like, I have no idea the moon keeps going around. Could be all very simple things you're puzzled by. Okay, but let's get to, and I'm just kidding everybody because that's my job. So let's get to this. So this was Drew's thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what Drew said is he kept thinking of, a round peg in a square hole, and the things he did as a kid, where you had blocks and you had to do that. So what was your thinking on this one?
Well, this was a tough one. Like Drew himself, when I saw the square hole and the round hole, I thought of the idiom about putting a square peg in a round hole. But I kept thinking about how to work with that, and I couldn't come up with anything. And then I focused on the fact that the fireman who's speaking looks like he's hesitating. And obviously, you wouldn't want to hesitate during a fire, during an emergency. So I had a few captions in which he's telling the guy behind him, give me a minute, the fire's not going anywhere. I can't even remember, but I had several ideas that were variations on that joke, but I didn't think any of those worked.
Yeah.
And then I just got past the square and the round hole, and I thought, why are there 2 poles? And I thought maybe one has a round hole because it's to designate the fact that that's the pole you go down on, and the square hole designates this is the pole that you go up on. So I had the fireman say, why do we need one that goes up, or something like that? Or why do we need one for going up?
Right. And I also looked at it and I came up with something similar, which is I always get confused about which one is down, just
right.
But then I also thought about fireman's test, this not being on the test. This wasn't on the test. I kept thinking, I didn't want to put in the actual name of the New York Fire Department test, but I kept thinking, well, somehow you had to qualify. You do have to take a test, and this was this was one of the things that wasn't in the prep. I couldn't figure that out. I did have thoughts like you did. I think I told you about the whole thing of why does a fireman wear red suspenders to keep his thing. So
Right.
I wanted to get that illusion. I wasn't sure that worked. I did have thoughts like you did about just him being flummoxed and
Yeah.
and him saying, you know, my thing was that, well, let's just hope the fire extinguishes itself. You know, you know what I mean?
Well, and that reminds me of a great, and I think this was for the caption contest, and I think it was a kind of Farley Katz or a Zachary Kanan cartoon takes place in an examining room, and there's a patient on the table, and the doctor has been in a terrible accident, and he's on crutches, and he's got his arm in a cast, and he says, let's just assume that your prostate is fine.
Right. So I think one of the things is that it'll be interesting. I mean, I draw on a lot of other cartoons, you do also, and I would think that the way you get better at this is just by looking at a lot of cartoons, especially on Cartoon Stock. If you look at thousands and thousands and thousands of cartoons on Cartoon Stock, you're almost certain to win this. Don't forget that. Keep looking at those cartoons. But then I think this is what the way I look at this is, the more you think of this as a story, what's happening. See, if you just look at it and think, I got to think of a caption. Yeah. Without thinking of any other, you have to start to let your mind associate. Is it you know, I'm thinking, damn, we better call the chief. Somehow that,
right.
that somebody else is in,
right.
You know, or now I'm thinking, now what happens when you do that is you start to make more associations. And
yeah.
And you don't make them directly, they pop in. So what just popped into me was him saying, look, I'm all for diversity.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
yeah.
all of a sudden that, which I would never get to, this idea of some diversity thing. Some, you know, and and then I'm just thinking, try other things, and it'll be very interesting to see what, you know, this is an interesting phenomenon called sort of collective discourse, where everybody is looking at the same thing, and the culture is sort of generating its associations, but many of them are really, you know, going to be the same. So let's see, what else? I'm just looking at, I hope some people aren't saying nasty things here. Oh, Peter, what do you think of the crossword puzzle taking the place of the contest on the last page? I don't think it is. It's just another thing, right? The contest is still there, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're wrong. I don't think about it because it's not true. Oh, Michael wrote, ooh, this is good. This is my. Does Cartoon Stock sell signed prints? Yes, we do sell signed prints. Hey, so anyway, let's. Well, it's almost an hour, really. You've got to go help poor people. And
I do.
You got to help poor people, and oh, look at that! Another complainer. One problem for international entrants is when U.S. products are alluded to. Also, okay, we'll stop that. From now on, it'll be whatever it is you. Well, what do you guys smoke in France? Gallo, what's the name of the cigarettes? Those horrible cigarettes, Galoise.
I don't know.
Anyway, all right, Jessica, how do we say goodbye?
You can just say goodbye.
Well,
Thanks for coming.
No, we can't just say goodbye because we are partying, and I know a lot of people just at partying. It's such sweet sorrow, but we're gonna have another one of these about in a month.
Yep.
You know, you can see what the deal is. Maybe I'll just have Lawrence again, but he'll have like a different costume on or a mask. It'll just be the same guest, but posing as different people.
This is the only suit I own.
Yeah, so Lawrence, thanks so much. This has been great. I hope you all enjoyed it. You sort of got the deal now. We'll do this every month on a topic that we of interest to myself and hopefully you. Anyway, have a great weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.